Awesome. Good morning, everyone. So good to be with you from the Seacoast this morning. My name is Alyssa Wright. I'm the lead and principal consultant of Wright Collective, and I'm a 15-year career fundraiser and philanthropic advisor, as well as a mother of five, three humans and two non-humans. I got two rescue pups in the house, so that's my crew. And I'm really excited again to be with you today. I'm going to start by sharing my screen and kicking us off with today's conversation about year-end appeals. First off, I want to just thank all of you for those of you who filled out the survey today to kind of prep me for today. It was really helpful. And I'll just say we have a range of folks who are doing this for the first time on today's call, as well as folks who said they'd been doing it for 10 plus years. So for me going into this year-end appeal season, it is my 16th, I think, year doing a year-end appeal, year-end campaign, if you can believe it. And then also it's the fourth time that I'll be doing this during an election season, a federal election season. So that's always a little tricky, right? It's a very noisy landscape out there. And so it's definitely something to be mindful of. And I will say also too, this is probably my second time doing a year-end appeal where the AI technology has been integrated into a lot of the platforms that we all utilize. And we've been intentional with using it. So I'll touch a little bit upon that today. I hope I cover everything that's helpful for you. So I wanted to start off by just sharing what a year-end appeal is. So a lot of organizations rely on the majority of their funding, not necessarily always grants, but a lot of their individual donations and corporate donations, sponsorships, small business donations to come in towards the end of the year, this September to December window. I think there's two reasons for this. One is it's the holiday season. No matter what your faith-based background is or spiritual background is, there's something that is celebrated during the season of generosity. And so both that and the combination of people preparing for their taxes in the next calendar year and looking to make the right deductions is sort of why we see year-end appeals happening between September and December every year. So as we talk about the structure of year-end appeals today, many of you are probably very used to, I've already gotten two I was going to share with you today, the mailed letters coming into the house. The letters are usually traditionally mailed and they are either accompanied by, or some organizations now are just doing digital campaigns. Many of these I've been seeing are starting in September. So every year they get earlier and earlier. But for the most part, I see the bulk of organizations these days mailing them out in October and November, really trying to get ahead of the Thanksgiving holiday. What I'll share this year is that I'm seeing a lot of organizations trying to get ahead of the November 4th elections. So again, October is probably the month where we're going to see a flurry of things coming into our mailbox and the initial letters showing up in our emails. The structure for year-end appeals going on here are that they're always really thoughtfully crafted to make a direct appeal to donors. Very often in these letters, we want it to be something really relevant, passionate stories from the organization, and there's a clear fundraising goal. The year-end appeals I've seen struggle the most are the ones that kind of have nothing tangible to them. It's just like, we're doing great work, give to us, right? So the ones that usually are the best are $20,000 to buy a van, $15,000 to help us grow this program by doing A, B, C, and D. It's really clear they have a financial goal and it's really relevant what they're asking for. There's a brand or identity to the campaign itself. It has an energy to it. It has incentives. Often we find this as matching grants or gifts. It sometimes comes with different events and activities. This could be a variety of things you host in your own space. This could be different activities you're doing, like a series of small house parties or things like that. But it has some activities to it as well that kind of accompany the letter writing campaign and the digital activity that's going on. And then it's the best time of year, which I'll talk a lot about today, for segmenting and tracking and segmenting, really understanding how you follow the energy of people giving and incentivize people to give maybe for the first time to upgrade their gift or to invite friends, family, colleagues, and others in their network to give as well. So who do you send your year-end appeal to? Might be obvious, but just naming here, your regular newsletter list. You can send it to everybody and anybody. Remember that donating is really an invitation for people to give. So remember that it's, as you're kind of going through your regular, newsletter list, or if you have certain lists of stakeholders that maybe haven't gotten an appeal before, maybe this is the year where you send it out to, some of the alumni, or you send it out to some of the volunteers. It's also the best time to get stakeholders in the organization, particularly board members at this time can be really helpful, adding to the list. So if you do anything in the next couple of weeks, maybe you're asking board members to send in 5 emails apiece of friends, family, colleagues, connections they have with their address or email address to get this appeal. The other thing you can do is send out a survey. So a lot of our clients right now at Wright Collective are sending out surveys to folks they just have an email for to get their address. We almost always try to incentivize this by saying, we'll send you a sticker or a pin. If anybody's ever done a training with me, I'm obsessed with stickers. I will give you my address for a sticker and then you can solicit me. So just think about ways you can incentivize the survey too, so you get the right feedback coming back. It's a great time to also send to local businesses. A lot of folks don't often think of that. You can send an appeal letter to Bangor Savings Bank or Kennebunk Savings Bank, and you can tag it, to the specific branch and say, we'd love you to launch a crowdfunding page this year, someone at the branch, or we'd love you to consider making a sponsorship of our year-end appeal. Don't forget that businesses can also be a part of it too. Obviously, family, friends, and colleagues from near and far. So if the pandemic proved anything to me about fundraising, it's that we can fundraise from Texas and California and Vancouver for what we do here in New Hampshire. So again, don't be afraid to reach out if someone cares about the issue or the mission that you have and invite them to give. A lot of place-based giving is important this time of year, but a lot of folks also just want to give to a cause they care about. Remember to invite everyone to give, so inclusion is really important. I have seen organizations starting to just mail letters out to, donors that give in a certain range. Really think about how you are engaging everyone and being inclusive from $5 to 5,000, because every gift matters. And then lastly, don't forget also too, to customize letters to your board members. So very often we task board members at this time of year, but they're people and donors too. So I will customize letters to board members, development committee members, remind them that they're also a donor, and make sure that they feel really connected to the year-end appeal campaign. And actually, I've seen board members before either increase their gift from that or just remember to make their gift. And then I'm not super annoying in February where I'm like, where's your donation at? So that's really important too, to be mindful of board members, volunteers, and the opportunity to potentially upgrade them or get them giving. All right, so just a quick spot here about messaging of year-end appeals. Remember, is this message relevant? You want to make sure that it's timely and relevant in the landscape. Make sure it doesn't sound like every other appeal letter. So boring. I get so many appeal letters and I'm like, I made a list of a couple of things I've already seen on some. One is how old the organization is. I don't care what year you were founded. What are you going to do with my money, right? I've seen paragraphs of text about the history of organizations. Another thing I've seen is it always comes from the board chair. Think about who the message really comes from. Is it from a student this year or a family or a new executive director? How can it be an exciting and relevant tie-in to someone who's really connected to the work day to day? It can sound super formal, like reading a grant report. As someone who's written grants and grant reports, I want to read that when I'm done writing them, that goes out the door. So make it story driven. And again, make sure, this is the 30-second mark, right? So people stop reading after 30 seconds if they're not engaged. So you've got to get them in those first few sentences or that first paragraph. Make it stand out. So maybe it comes from our grants background, or I definitely know, over the years I've told colleagues, like, don't over intellectualize your fundraising efforts. You can have deep conversations about the theory behind what you're doing with certain funders or as time goes on. But for a fundraising campaign, have fun, be silly, incentivize people to give, have a clear brand or identity. One year, an organization that we worked with just had us vote on which was the cutest puppy. They raised a ton of money. They didn't talk at all about how they were starting to forward like an animal rights agenda at their shelter and support people in taking care of animals' welfare throughout the entire region. So just be mindful that this is a time of year where it's noisy and busy. And sometimes if you do something silly or fun or witty and have a real personality, people pay attention. The other thing is to get out on social media. I've seen a lot of staff starting to get more involved in year-end appeals and fundraising. So it's not just board chair, executive director, director of development. Get your whole staff involved. One of the things I saw recently was I saw it was for a spring campaign, but you could parallel it to a year-end campaign. A whole entire staff and team had everyone write a haiku about something they learned that year. And every week they shared the haiku on social media and attached the donation link. And they actually got 112 extra donors from that activity. So just remember to really stand out and have a personality in your year-end appeal campaign. So one of the things that, again, if anyone's heard me teach before or has gotten the opportunity to collaborate together with us as a client, you're probably really used to me saying, make your list and work your list. So often we make our lists and then we don't work the lists. I call it being lovingly annoying. So again, that's where it's really important to send out your list, send out your emails to 10 donors. When you see that 3 of them give, thank them. When you see it that 3 of them click and open it but don't give, reach out to them personally and say, hey, just wanted to follow up and see if you want to make your year-end gift today. Or, hey, Sue, I saw you click on this and just wanted to let you know I'm almost to 100 donors, which was my next benchmark. Could you be donor number 98? Or, hey, Sarah, like would love you to make your gift today and I'll send you a sticker. Make that list, work that list, get everybody across the finish line so you can see your cash in the bank, right? So again, this is really important as you segment and target. This is important from a high standpoint. So again, when you're sending out a digital campaign and it goes out to 1,000 people and 30 people click but don't give, pull those 30 people out and send them a custom message, right? So all of that type of tracking, both at a higher level through your entire listserv, but also with your own personal list or board members with their personal lists is super important. And then the last thing is identify some trends and try out some specific messages. For instance, I actually just got an appeal from a birth center that we work with, and I gave birth in April. So I could tell they segmented out a bunch of parents who had had a child this year and sent us a specific message saying, we know you just had a recent birth experience and know how important the work is. And of course, because I'm a total sucker and I love birth centers, I made a donation. And then if you gave a donation of $100 or more, they sent you a onesie. So I gave $101 because I just could not help myself. Um, Here's one of our best performing ever appeal letters. The incredible Andrea Berry, who's the executive director of Wild Seed Project, wrote this letter. It's one of the best ones I've ever seen a client or a partner put out. I shared a couple resources with Karen ahead of today that will be in the folder, but this not only got, I think it had like an 80% open rate and we sent it 3 or 4 times. It was wild. But it also had people donating multiple times as they got the letter because they were just like, this new leader is so heart connected and we're so excited to work with her. So again, just think about who's delivering the message, what the story is. And I think this campaign was really centered, as you can see here right in the middle, around this one-liner of Wild Seed Project is so much more than plants. We're taking on climate change, one native tree at a time. So again, think about those one-liners also too around your work that really break people open to the bigger ecosystem that you're in, the movement that you're a part of, the larger thing in the world that you're really making an impact around. All right, so here's a handful of things, just some creative ideas in the current landscape for those of you who are hoping to get some creative ideas out of today. The first is don't ignore the election. Obviously, as nonprofit organizations, there are things we can and can't say. So if you have any question about those, you can definitely follow up with the New Hampshire Center for Nonprofits for additional resources. But capitalize on it as the opportunity to talk about your issue, especially if your issue might be impacted by federal funding or state funding into the future. There are ways for you to have relevant messages come out right now. And donors actually have written to me and said, it's a little weird they didn't address that, even though they're working with immigrants and refugees, right? So if there's something that they're hearing about in the media, don't be afraid to pepper some of those messages into your year-end appeal. The other thing is also have fun. So one of our clients, their theme for their year-end appeal is just voting booths. And so again, every campaign is going to be a different voting booth and people voting and kind of getting engaged on different topics. And also, one year we did have a client for another animal shelter do kitty for president, and people over the course of the year-end appeal voted for which cat was going to be the president of their in-house feline board, which I thought was pretty cute and funny. But again, it caught my attention, and I definitely participated more in opening their emails that season. Do something different with Giving Tuesday. It's a crowded marketplace, and it's really a lot of people, I think, lean into their Giving Tuesday campaign a little bit too much. And then when they fall short, they're frustrated. Think about it as a time to sell some swag, maybe even highlight a partner organization and say, in the spirit of solidarity fundraising this year, we're going to fundraise for one of our favorite partner organizations that we work with. That again, a lot of donors see that and go, wow, like they're part of a broader ecosystem and network, and how cool that they're not competing with other nonprofits, but working together. Think about maybe even running a low-level donor campaign. A couple years ago, we had a client on Giving Tuesday that did the dollar donor, and they actually got like 300 new donors from that, from a dollar campaign they ran. So think about something like that too. And then always hosting a small event. So if you want to host something on Giving Tuesday, you could do that as well. Half My DAF is a movement that we pay a lot of attention to at Wright Collective. Donor advised fund holders are folks that, don't necessarily have a formal foundation where they give through with a process, but they're also doing more than just cutting a check and putting it in the mail at the end of the year. So look at the movement Half My DAF. You can Google that right now and check it out. Follow the messages and know that you might be able to incentivize donors to give half of their donor advised fund to you this fall and winter. Put out a bold letter or a wanted ad. We had a client one year that put out a wanted $1 million donor. Here's what we would do with it as a campaign. And they actually had a funder respond to it and go, I didn't know you ever wanted to buy a building. I work in real estate. Let's talk. 3 years later, they actually ended up purchasing a building instead of continuing to lease and rent the one they were in. So you never know, but feel free to have some big vision and talk about your dreams in your year-end campaign. You never know who's listening. Another one of our clients a few years back launched their first mascot for the organization and had bought a costume and had the superhero running around town taking pictures, and folks were looking for that individual to come, and they had a hashtag. So feel free to get something trending. Again, the example I shared earlier, talking about your awesome staff, making a campaign with them, getting them involved. And then everyone likes food. Just do something with food. Not to be a stereotypical millennial, but like if there's anything to do with food or a brewery or a wine tasting or, coffee or tea, like something really fun in the food beverage space, I'm usually there and I'm usually donating. And then don't think about also too of adding something to your envelope for fun. A one-liner, original artwork, even a joke. We had a client a couple years back that on the front of the envelope had the joke on the front. You flipped it over, there was the punchline, and it said, "Open it and give today." So again, don't be afraid to distinguish yourself and have a little personality. A couple of trends to keep on for this year, just keep thinking about is you're going to have more success if you segment by gift size. Every year we see this. So if people normally give you $1,000, make sure you're segmenting them out and sending a different appeal. If people normally give you $25, segment them out, send them a different appeal. So again, we've been seeing much more success with clients every year who segment out and target specifically instead of just sending out for specific digital campaigns that, again, kind of go to the entire donor base. Phone calls are back. I don't know about you all, but I don't read as many emails as I wish I could because life is busy. But I've seen a lot of success. And actually, this was a trend last year highlighted by a couple of Give Butter and a couple platforms that did research. Organizations that did sort of phone banking or had a phone element to what they did, texting as well included in this, were much more successful with their year-end appeals. Another trend is to look for AI integrations, so whatever technology you're using, maybe take a good, 60, 90 minutes, block it off on your calendar next week and understand those functionalities and what's possible. We did that last year with one of the birth centers that we work with in the greater Boston area, and the video integration made a huge difference. It really allowed us to be able to pre-record a bunch of messages and send them out when people gave at certain levels. So just make automation your friend. It'll allow you to spend more time with donors in person instead of 2 o'clock in the morning trying to figure out how to do that in Blackbaud, because that's never been me. That's been me probably like a dozen times. um, Another trend is, again, mobile-friendly online donations are yielding better results. So if you do have a text functionality or, if it, again, looking at it on your phone, I give a lot on my phone. I give through Venmo and Square and Apple Pay much more quickly. When I get an email in, I can click and just give from my phone. So make sure you're testing your year-end appeal through your phone. E-cards are new and on the scene. It's a great time of year to also collect employer data. That's trending. A lot of organizations last year increased their relationships with different around corporate giving after collecting that data in their year-end appeal. Influencers are raising more money than board members. So think about local influencers in the community, people who have a large following. They're kind of always at the Chamber of Commerce event. They're the local radio DJ. Many of them, when they come out and become an ambassador for your organization, are going to bring in more donors and more resources than sometimes the energy we invest with board members, especially as boards are focused on more governance things and we're creating more inclusive boards into the future. Think about those community influencers and some of those bigger donors too with peers that you can push on to give and support. And then chat GTP and exploring AI. One of the things I was just going to share here today, if it's interesting to you all, and again, I don't know what functionalities you have with your technology, but a big trend on the horizon is this VEO, this virtual engagement officer. So last year in a test study, on an average, I think across 100 organizations that tested out this AI bot, it closed 13 gifts just from automated emails that came. And that resulted in an additional $3,000, again, with the organization just kind of setting it and forgetting it. And so we're really looking at this as a trend. Like, how do we utilize this in a thoughtful and meaningful way? And also, you can see here a little bit in the data from what was the test run that they did earlier this year, the questions that the bot got, right? So this is really interesting. Make sure in your year-end appeal, you are letting the donor know how much they donated this year or last year. You're referencing their giving. Make sure that you are putting in your letter, if you want to be in touch, here's our director of development or our ED. They might ask about specific funds that are on your website or specific events that you have listed. Make sure you address them in communications as well. And then also, maybe answer any questions of, hey, aren't you funded by the city? Don't you have a lot of grants? Make sure that you're telling organizations why they should give you a gift this year because they might not know how you're funded. So it's important to share that with them as well. So I'm going to pause there. I invite you all to come and follow us at wrightcollective.co. I didn't leave off the M, it's .co. That's a question I get often. And with that, I'm going to hand it back over to you, Karen.